Boxed home battery storage. Sponsors of weather on GB News.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For a chance to win a motorhome and cash, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Claro uses seasonal produce for lunch and dinner. It's committed to contemporary Mediterranean food with Middle Eastern influences, aiming to mirror its sister restaurant in Tel Aviv. Chef Shadi Isawi leads the venture, and he joins me now. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, here we have what we call our lamb tray. In the restaurant. It's one of the signature dishes that we have in Tel Aviv, running for almost 8 or 9 years. It's actually 2 to 3 lamb necks that are tied together and braised with our own mix of spices for about 4 to 5 hours in the oven.
Ooh, yeah. Slow cook.
So
and you've told me
tender, yeah,
that because of its tenderness,
yes,
I'm just going to be able to break off pieces here.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, you're right, you know. Beautiful, beautiful lamb. So you, in your restaurant, and indeed in Tel Aviv, you would fill the table with food.
Yes.
And everyone, all the friends together, would fall upon the food. Is that right?
Yes. We really like to share food together. We really like to put the food in the center of the table, and then everybody is around it. Everybody is sharing. So you have your tzatziki, which is from Greece. You have your matbucha, which is from North Africa. You have your lamb, which has the Middle Eastern spices in it, and let's say the European way of cooking it. You have the pickles, which are extremely Middle Eastern, especially the way we pickle them. Well, you have the fattiness of the lamb, you have the freshness of the leaves, you have the dairy of the tzatziki, a little bit of spiciness from the matbucha, a little bit of sourness and tanginess from the pickles. So it all fits together in one bite. Yes, and we do like to use our hands.
This is really, really delicious.
The People's Channel.
It's 10 a.m. on Saturday, the 5th of April, live across the United Kingdom. This is Saturday Morning Live with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates.
And it's the word on everyone's lips this morning as US President Donald Trump's economic policy takes effect.
Tariffs. It's a beautiful word, isn't it?
Yes, those 10% base-lift tariffs introduced by President Trump came into effect at 5 a.m. this morning. But what does it mean for Britain? And could our laws on free speech be playing a part? We'll be joined by top guests throughout to unpick the detail.
And an anti-abortion campaigner has been convicted. Yesterday, Livia Tisici-Bolt was convicted and sentenced after breaching a public spaces protection order outside an abortion clinic. We'll be speaking to her lawyer shortly.
King Charles is forced to deny involvement with an alleged Chinese spy after being dragged into the Prince Andrew scandal.
And a farm funding crisis. A farm in St Osyth that caters for visitors with disabilities and mental health challenges is in desperate need of funds. Jack Carson is there with the story.
Well, increasing costs and more means that Sandy's farm needs some money. We're here all day learning about the fantastic work that this community care farm does for people in this community and meeting some very cute donkeys as well.
Russell Brand charged. The comedian and actor has been charged with rape and sexual assault following an investigation by the Metropolitan Police. Allegations which he denies.
And should rich people fly less so poorer families can still take summer holidays? That's what one net zero Sard thinks. We'll be debating that question.
And giddy up, it's Grand National Day, and the GB News North West of England reporter Sophie Reaper is on the ground at Aintree. We'll go live to her and some fantastic guests throughout the morning.
Yes, we have the biggest stories, the boldest opinions and the liveliest debates over the next 2 hours. I'm Miriam Cates.
And I'm Charlie Peters. Your weekend starts here.
So don't forget, of course, we want to hear from you. We'd love to hear all your opinions about our discussions today. Send your views, post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/your say. And it's going to be a great show, Charlie. I think it's really interesting, this twin story of tariffs and free speech. Could our free speech laws be hampering our trade with the US?
Yeah, it's a big topic, and I think it's something we're really going to be diving into this morning. So much discussion on GB News always about free speech, but finally, people are paying notice to a lot of the censorship issues that all of our viewers have been raising. So please do get in touch on gbnews.com/your say. Loads more for us to get stuck into, but before we do anything else, Sophia Hill has all your headlines.
Very good morning. It's 3 minutes past 10. These are your latest headlines. Now, the top story, the UK wakes up this morning to a 10% tariff on UK goods imported into the US as President Trump's trade tariffs come into force. President Donald Trump announced global tariffs earlier this week on his so-called Liberation Day, as he claimed that the global trade system was unfair on the US and workers had suffered. Investment firm JP Morgan had warned that the odds of a global recession have now spiked from 40% to 60%, saying there will be blood. Yesterday, America and China declared a trade war, and this weekend, Sir Keir Starmer will hold talks with global leaders to navigate this new era in trade after expressing the government's disappointment over the US tariffs. From tomorrow, new parents with a child in neonatal care will be entitled to an additional 12 weeks of leave and pay on top of parental leave if eligible. The leave will apply to parents of babies who are admitted into neonatal care up to 28 days old and who have a continuous stay in care for 7 full days or longer. The Department for Business and Trade said the measure will aim to relieve some of the pressure on working families. Pro-majority charities say they are delighted with the right coming into force after years of campaigning. And comedian and actor Russell Brand has been charged with rape and sexual assault following a year-long police investigation. The actor will appear at Westminster Magistrates Court on the 2nd of May. Meanwhile, Brand has responded to the charges on X. He said, "What I never was a rapist. I've never engaged in non-consensual activity." Some royal news. The King and Queen will spend their 20th wedding anniversary as guests of honour at a state banquet held in Rome. King Charles and Queen Camilla will be attending a black tie dinner held as part of the couple's 4-day state visit to Italy next week. King Charles first met his wife on the polo field in 1970 when he had just left Cambridge University a year before he joined the Royal Navy. And it's Grand National Day. Racegoers are gearing up at Aintree today, with thousands expected to fill the stands. 34 horses are set to race in the prestigious event later this afternoon, with last year's winners, I Am Maximus, looking strong with the bookies. This year's Grand National will also be the greyest in living memory, with 7 grey runners accounting for more than 20% of the field. The winner will take home in excess of £500,000. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More in half an hour, but now it's back to Charlie and Miriam.
Hello and welcome. You're watching and listening to Saturday Morning Live with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Yes, we've got lots of really interesting stories this morning, but free speech is definitely a theme. Obviously, we've got the impact of UK speech laws on tariffs, potentially, but also another shocking news story in the Times today. Police are making 30 arrests a day for offensive online messages. I wonder how many arrests they're making for shoplifting.
Yeah, it's a big issue, and it comes in the context of those tariffs that we're talking about today, of course, because the US State Department, they're said to be extremely concerned with how Britain is regulating free speech, and that could affect our engagement with Washington when it comes to tariffs. And let's not forget what the US Vice President J.D. Vance said earlier this year when he was with our Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, in the Oval Office.
Look, I said what I said, which is that we do have, of course, a special relationship with our friends in the UK and also with some of our European allies, but we also know that there have been infringements on free speech that actually affect not just the British. Of course, what the British do in their own country is up to them, but also affect American technology companies and, by extension, American citizens. So that is something that we'll talk about today at lunch.
We've had free speech for a very, very long time in the United Kingdom, and it will last for a very, very long time.
So, of course, this free speech row, the fact that the US now thinks that the UK does not have free speech, is particularly pertinent in the light of Trump's new tariffs. Of course, that was all announced yesterday about how much the UK is now going to have to pay to export into the US. And will it depend on whether or not the UK has better, or rather fewer, free speech rules? Well, joining us now to discuss the tariffs and their potential impact on the UK economy, we've got the economist and fellow at the Centre for Brexit Policy, Catherine McBride. Catherine, thank you so much for joining us. This is, of course, massive international news, this kind of restructuring of the global economy. But what does it mean for the UK?
Well, though the 10% tariff started today, 5 o'clock this morning, the 25% tariffs on aluminium and steel actually have already started. And for our exports, our biggest problem is aircraft parts. We export £2.3 billion of aircraft parts, and they fall under the aluminium tariffs, that tariff code. It's very particular, it's line by line, so it's not a blanket thing. Yeah. The 10% tariffs probably are to be expected. That's the minimum. We should negotiate them down. I think there's huge potential for the UK and the US to do a complete free trade agreement. But weirdly, there is a lot of talk that they're going to do a digital free trade agreement, which is amusing because if you look at the trade barriers for the European Union, and one of the two reasons they got a much higher tariff rate was pages of it are all about their barriers to electronic communication, audiovisual services, telecommunication services, digital services taxation, Digital Services Act, Digital Markets Act. And the beauty for us in Brexit is that most of these are dated November 2022 or, this one's 2021, October 2021. So they all started after we left. Thank God we left. But unfortunately, our government is mimicking a lot of the things that the EU has done. So we shouldn't be resting too easy. Yeah.
Well, Catherine, on that possibility of a bespoke deal between Britain and the United States, how much of that will rely on changes potentially to free speech laws? Do you think that's going to have a big impact on those ongoing arrangements and discussions?
Well, interestingly, if the rumours are true, they've already put that on the table because the digital services tax was only raising about a third of what they thought it would raise. In their estimates 2 years ago, they thought it would raise £3 billion, and instead it's about 800 million. So they were quite happy to drop that one. Whether they're also going to drop their laws about free speech will be another thing, because you'll then got parents going on BBC, which I'm sure you don't watch, saying, oh, my child committed suicide because of what she saw on the internet.
But they are different. I mean, they are two separate issues because there are laws that prevent you from expressing or saying certain things, which absolutely we don't need. Yeah. But then should there be an age limit for going on social media, like there is for driving a car, drinking alcohol? I think they are two separate issues. But just back to the tariffs. Potentially, we could negotiate a free trade deal or reduce tariffs. But ultimately, what Trump wants is to reindustrialise the American economy. He doesn't want no tariffs. It's not just a negotiating tactic. He actually wants to reshore industry to the US.
Well, most certainly. I just, in fact, wrote something about that, and I'm writing a very large paper about the whole thing for the Prosperity Institute. But they really need to bring the means of production back to the US, and they have lost the base stuff. And if you don't do the hard graft at the bottom, you don't innovate. And so now we find that China has put in the most patents in last year. The most patents went to China because they've been doing the grunt work for us for about 20 years. And now they've worked out how to do things better.
And Catherine, what is the chance that this might inspire a change potentially in the manufacturing processes in Britain, that this returning of production to our shores as well? Could this have a knock-on effect for us too?
Only if we change our energy policy. Unfortunately, everything is leaving the country for two reasons, energy and taxes. So we've got very high corporate taxes, and we top that up with very expensive electricity, very expensive taxes on oil and gas production. You know, INEOS, one of our biggest companies that does petrochemicals and plastics. They're both derivatives of the oil market. You can't do them without a lot of input. Trump is drill, baby, drill, and we are, oh no, we'll just use wind.
Wind farm, baby, wind farm.
And the problem with wind farm is the means of production, the means of turning the wind into electricity are not made in the UK anymore.
Made in China.
We can't make the steel, we can't make the copper wire inside them. We still make cement, but cement is hugely absorptive and creates a lot of, it needs a lot of power, very, very high heat to make cement. So once we get rid of oil and gas, we got rid of cement as well. So we won't be able to replace the wind farm without getting the parts from China, and possibly they'll come and install it for us.
Indeed. Well, a bleak picture, and we'll have more on the tariffs later on. But Catherine, thank you so much for joining us.
Now, moving on, a farm in St Osyth that caters for visitors with disabilities and mental health challenges is in desperate need of funds.
Yes, the owner says they have only about a month left of funds and they will have to shut if they don't receive any more money.
Now, we're joined by our GB News reporter, Jack Carson. Jack, what can you bring us on this Saturday morning from the farm? What are you hearing from those working there?
Well, what I'm hearing is just probably like a lot of people across the country, businesses included, that costs are meaning it's really difficult to keep things running. And we're here at Sandy's farm just outside Clacton this morning. You can see the beautiful animal. This is Molly, the donkey, who's been very, very friendly to us this morning. And this is the thing about this farm. It's not just a community farm for schools, for colleges, for those children, adults with learning difficulties or disabilities that can come and experience these animals, sit with these animals and go out with these animals and really gain the benefits that these animals can bring them. All these animals are rescue as well, so they've each got their own individual stories, and whether it is buying hay for them, whether it is in order to keep leasing this land that this farm is on, those costs meaning that Sandy's farm here needs support. And we're here all day finding out about the fantastic work they do. We've already heard this morning about some of the work that they do and some of the impact that it's had, but they need more than £10,000 over the next 4 weeks in order to be able to keep this place running. This is so embedded in its community. We've seen volunteers turn up this morning to help just with getting the animals ready this morning, mucking them out and giving them that fresh food and water. So if you'd like to help Sandy's Farm today, you can go to GoFundMe.com, search for Sandy's Farm. Our viewers have already been so generous this morning. We're here all day and we're looking to make sure that they can keep going and keep themselves embedded and doing the great work in the community that they're doing already.
Wow, brilliant stuff, Jack Carson. Thank you so much for bringing us that report on such an important issue. Did you hear that noise in the background there?
Squeaker gate.
Yeah. Well, clearly they're happy to be live on GB News this morning as well.
And we'll have more on that later. Well, moving on, yesterday, anti-abortion campaigner Livia Tasici-Bolt was convicted of breaching a public spaces protection order outside an abortion clinic.
Now, the 64-year-old was handed a 2-year conditional discharge at Poole Magistrates Court.
Well, joining us now, we have the lawyer who represented Livia Tasici-Bolt, Jeremiah Igunabole, here with us in the studio.
Thank you.
Now, welcome, Jeremiah. Thanks so much for joining us. This is an extraordinary case. Livia was convicted for holding a sign, not even speaking, within one of these buffer zones, and yet technically she did break the law. How can that be?
Well, what we've seen here is that freedom of speech, which was previously the priceless foundation of our democracy, now has a price. She was handed £20,000 prosecution cost order to go some way to pay the £64,000 that the council had paid to engage in this prosecution. What did she do? Nothing other than stand silently, holding a sign saying, "Here to talk if you want." and she was approached by several individuals who indeed had a chat with her. Somebody even invited her home for a cup of tea, and she was approached by officers saying, "You're breaching the buffer zone." And she said, "Can you identify how?" They really kind of failed to do so, naming various provisions, but without explaining why. And I think what's remarkable about Livia's case is that they've inferred that she's disapproving of abortion from her known beliefs. So if this isn't a two-tier society, then what is? Because essentially now we have zones that Christians can't go to if you hold pro-life beliefs and you're inferred to be disapproving of abortion. This is content-based criminalisation.
Jeremiah, you've been obviously campaigning, and your organisation's been campaigning of freedom of speech for years on this issue, but also so many others. Do you feel as though a bigger spotlight is being put on this issue now because of the new American administration and the comments they're making about free trade and about censorship in Britain?
Absolutely. We saw yesterday the State Department commented on Livia's case, noting that they were disappointed in the verdict. But what I find really disappointing is that it's taken the US State Department to comment on the censorship crisis in this country. We had Number 10 referring to Livia's case as something that may well portray harassment. So equating peaceful behaviour as harassment is a despicable lack of leadership.
Well, that's the thing, because harassment is already a crime, and if you do harass somebody, you can be prosecuted or at least moved on. But the problem with these buffer zone laws, and I was in Parliament when, regrettably, they were brought in because, unfortunately, lots of Conservative MPs voted for this Labour amendment. The absurd thing about this rule is I think it says it's now illegal to do anything that intentionally influences someone's decision to use abortion services. How can it be a crime to try and influence someone in a free society?
Absolutely. The foundation of our society is the free and frank exchange of views, particularly when they are expressed so peacefully and are engaging the kind of voluntary engagement of the other person. So this is the definition of democracy. But we now have in the UK a price to freedom of speech, and that's £20,000.
Jeremiah, I was in Portsmouth yesterday, right? Because we're coming up to 80 years since VE Day, and all the sailors, officers, and people I was speaking to there were saying it's so important to commemorate the Second World War, the war dead, because the sacrifices they made to protect our freedoms, and they kept referring to freedom of speech. Do you think people understand in Britain just the extent to which censorship can be an issue on these sorts of cases? And have we, they say we shouldn't take these freedoms for granted, but have we already done so?
I think your question is entirely right. I don't think there's a understanding in this country as to we've lost sight of the basis of our society. And I think this is a leadership problem. As I mentioned already, Keir Starmer is referring to peaceful conduct as harassment, potentially. And even the leader of the opposition, while she condemned buffer zones, noted that Parliament had brought it into force. But the reality is that Parliament at no time voted to criminalise consensual conversations. That was never really brought to the fore. So we need to reignite this debate about what is it that founds our democracy? What gives it legitimacy? What gives our parliamentarians legitimacy? And I think the answer to that is to protect the fundamental rights of the citizens that they represent.
So, very quickly, what would need to happen legally or from a legislative point of view to restore those freedoms that we once had? What would need to be repealed? What would need to be changed?
Well, a lot of laws would need to be repealed. But I think what we need is a robust standard for freedom of speech. And if freedom of speech can simply be read away using the discretion of a police officer, local authorities, then we clearly don't have strong enough laws. So Article 10 is not doing its job properly. I think we need new laws.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Jeremiah, and thanks for all your hard work. Well, we've got lots more to come.
Yeah, thank you. And should rich people fly so poorer families can still take summer holidays? We'll be having a debate on that question. Pretty strange one, I know, but it's coming up. Is that advice prudent, or is it just plain patronising?
But next, King Charles has been forced to deny involvement with an alleged Chinese spy after being dragged into the Prince Andrew scandal. We'll discuss that and all of Saturday's big stories because you're watching Saturday Morning Live on GB.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Headliners on GB News, 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Patrick Christie's Tonight. Weekdays from 9 p.m.
Look, so some people will clearly say we have spiralling rapes, sexual assaults and knife crime, and therefore anything that can clamp down on that or help to is a good thing. Where are you?
And that is what we're meant to think about this technology, Patrick. But I would just say to people, we have never had so much CCTV in our country, and we have never been less safe. So even on a basic metric, it just isn't working. This is facial recognition, live facial recognition, has not been voted for by the public. It has not even been voted for in Parliament. It is operating completely out of any sort of legislative jurisdiction. And actually, when you say there are cases which haven't been verified as to whether there have been mistaken identities, there actually are. And Big Brother Watch, which is an amazing organisation, a civil liberties organisation, campaigning group, they have cases on their website, and in fact, they're fundraising at the moment. And to give you an example, Sean Thompson, who works for an amazing organisation called Street Fathers, and they work with boys that might go into crime. And he's a black guy, and actually ethnic minorities are much more likely to be misidentified by this technology. And Sean was working for his organisation. On his way home, he gets collared by 3 or 4 police officers who get him in a corner and say, "We've just recognised your face from our camera." And he said, it's not me, it's genuinely not me. And even the police sort of admitted it probably wasn't him, and he had his passport. And he said, "Look, I'm a youth worker. I get kids off the street, I get them away from crime." There are other examples, because it's not just the police, Patrick, that have these powers. It's private companies who will stop people going into shops if they think that they're a shoplifter. And it isn't always accurate.
The People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Well, welcome back to Saturday Morning Live with Miriam and Charlie. It's great to have you here today. And we've got our wonderful panel here for the papers. But before we get stuck into that, we're very delighted to say that GB News Breakfast has been nominated for a Trick Award again. Yeah, we've reached the long list for the best news programme, and we need your help. All of these awards are voted for by you at home, so please do scan the QR code on screen right now, or go to poll-trick.org.uk to vote for us.
Well, I think there's also somebody else up for award, but I can't really remember his name. Anyway, actually, our very own Charlie Peters has also been nominated in the Best News Presenter category. So please vote for Charlie. Of course, he's far too modest to ask you to do that.
Yes, and the great thing about Trick is they're voted for by the people. So, yeah, we're especially proud to be nominated by them whenever we are.
So scan that QR code now. Well, to look through the top stories of today, we're delighted to be joined by political commentator Eve McQuillan and broadcaster Lynn May. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio. Lots of interesting stories in the paper today. But, Eve, shall we start with this story about 1 in 50 men think that they can outrun a horse? And I think this is a poll done, given that it's the Grand National today.
I mean, I love this story, and God, please give me the confidence of one of these men, because honestly, I think, you know, as women, we perhaps have experienced a gentleman who is this kind of bloke. I also note that 27% of them think that they can apparently take on a crocodile. So there you go.
But 1 in 50 is 2%. I mean, that's nothing. Isn't it just that 2% of people don't really have a good grasp of maths and estimation? It's a tiny number of people.
No, I think I don't know if you've ever been in a pub where there's a group of men and they always think, especially after a few drinks, that they can take on the world, can't they? And
1 in 50, obviously, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we were discussing horses usually get up to 40 miles an hour. Usain Bolt, the fastest man, can run up to 27, so you can see the huge difference. But, you know, they did a study, and even when it comes to applying for jobs, if there are 10 things on the requirements, men will look at the 10 things and say, I've got 2, I can do that, whereas women will see the 10 and say, I can only do 8 of those, so I won't apply. So we need some of this confidence.
Well, allow me to share my inspiration as the sole man on this panel here. I would say... Speaking of applying for jobs wildly overconfidently, look,
receiving awards.
Yes, indeed. It works, folks. But when it comes to these sort of stats about 1 in 50, my all-time favourite of this was the number of men who think they could get a point off Serena Williams in tennis. And everyone thought this was crazy. Well, it was, of course, over a full tennis match. There'll be a double fault. Yeah, she might miss 2 aces and all the rest of it. OK. So 2 serves. Sorry, I don't know the terminology, but I still reckon I could get a point.
You think you can? You can take on Serena. If you're listening, Serena.
I think all 4 of us could get a point against Serena Williams.
I don't think
but only one of us believes so, and that comes to the crux of the crisis, don't you think?
Absolutely. Well, I'm all for more confidence for men. It's a good thing.
But let's move on, shall we? Let's go into this King Charles being dragged into this royal storm with Prince Andrew, because, Lynn, these new court documents claiming he was personally briefed about an investment fund involving an alleged Chinese agent.
Well, where there's a scandal, there seems to be, you know, Prince Andrew. And what seems to have happened is there's open dialogue with China via an alleged spy, and the BBC demanded that the documents were shown. And this spy, allegedly, also was very close to Andrew and advised him on his business. And there were, you know, every birthday there were cards, and, you know, especially somewhere like China, we have to be extremely careful, especially with the royal family, so it's not a good look for Britain at the moment.
But underlying this story was an attempt to try and help Andrew become financially independent by making some investments, and you can kind of see the motivation behind that. And, of course, the King certainly didn't know, and Andrew probably didn't, that there was any particularly Chinese involvement that they should be concerned about.
Yeah, I mean, there is no suggestion of any wrongdoing by the King at all. I mean, my sympathy for Prince Andrew is very limited, and frankly, given what he's been up to in the past, I don't understand why there's all this help to get him investments so he can live independently. Perhaps he should do what the rest of us do and get a job.
Well, before we move on to our next story, I have a statement to read from a palace spokesperson who said that while His Majesty met with the Duke and his advisor to hear outline proposals for independent funding over the past year, the individual known as H6 was not mentioned at any time or in any way as part of these discussions. So moving away from that now, let's go into this. I mean, this is a great piece in The Times, Lynn, about British slang being adopted by American Gen Z. They finally cottoned on to some of the great chat that we've got.
Well, I think this... I think this is as a result of America being more exposed to a lot of our programmes, and even, you know, things now with TikTok, there's all of this comparisons of different slang words, and even in popular culture, rappers like Drake show lots of love to the UK and take back the slang to America and Canada. So we've seen this exchange, and I think, you know, Americans always, they pretend that they don't, but they love a bit of British slang and culture.
What's your favourite slang word?
Careful.
I don't know. Maybe peng for good looking.
I think bonkers was one of them, which is that's
a traditional. That's a good old
one of the ones
traditional.
that apparently they made. But it's about time they took some of our slang. I mean, I'm a bit fed up of British people saying "y'all" and things like this.
That's a disaster. Yeah. But what I'm really enjoying is how so many Americans are discovering our slang in really small and weird ways. Like, it's wonderful how British people say "your lot" and how that's really exceptional. They don't use that sort of language. Your lot.
Yes.
I want to hear hear super and wicked. I think that's...
Yeah, you're
really
taking it back. You're taking it back.
Absolutely. I'd love to hear that from America. Well, thank you so much, Eve and Lynn. And still to come, we're going to be asking, should rich people fly less so poor families can still take summer holidays? That's what one net zero czar thinks. We'll be debating that.
Yeah, well, but first, and before we get stuck into that, we've got your latest news headlines with Sophia Hill.
Charlie, Miriam, thank you. Very good morning. It's just gone 10:30. These are your latest headlines. Now, the top story this morning, the UK wakes up to a 10% tariff on UK goods imported into the US as President Trump's trade tariffs come into force. President Donald Trump announced global tariffs earlier this week on his so-called Liberation Day, as he claimed that the global trade system was unfair on the US and workers had suffered. Investment firm JP Morgan have warned that the odds of a global recession have now spiked from 40% to 60%, saying there will be blood. Yesterday, America and China declared a trade war, while Sir Keir Starmer is expected to spend the weekend speaking to global leaders as they attempt to navigate this new trade era. Now, from tomorrow, new parents with a child in neonatal care will be entitled to an additional 12 weeks of leave and pay on top of parental leave if eligible. The leave will apply to parents of babies who are admitted into neonatal care up to 28 days old and who have a continuous stay in care for 7 full days or longer. The Department for Business and Trade said the measure will aim to relieve some of the pressure on working families. Prematurity charities say they are delighted with the right coming into force after years of campaigning. And the King and Queen will spend their 20th wedding anniversary as guests of honour at a state banquet held in Rome. King Charles and Queen Camilla will be attending a black tie dinner held as part of the couple's 4-day state visit to Italy next week. The King first met his wife on the polo field in 1970 when he had just left Cambridge University, a year before he joined the Royal Navy. And it's Grand National Day. Racegoers are gearing up at Aintree today with thousands expected to fill the stands. 34 horses are set to race in the prestigious event this afternoon, with last year's winner, I Am Maximus, looking strong with the bookies. This year's Grand National will be the greyest in living memory, with 7 grey runners accounting for more than 20% of the field. The lucky winner will take home in excess of £500,000. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Yeah.
Well, as Sophia's just been saying, it is Grand National Day, the most iconic race in the equestrian calendar. And our North West of England reporter, Sophie Reaper, is there for us.
And should wealthier families fly less in order to free up flights and reduce carbon dioxide emissions so that poorer families can fly more? Is this just eco-communism or a sensible net zero policy? We'll be debating that very shortly.
All of this coming up on Saturday Morning Live after the break.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Tomorrow on GB News Breakfast, we've got a treat for you.
It's me, Angela Rippon.
For just one morning, the broadcast and Strictly Star joins the breakfast team to bring you all the news as it happens.
Nice positive story then.
Another special day here on GB News.
Well, we're still here after the last one.
GB News Breakfast with me, Stephen Dixon, and Angela Rippon. Tomorrow from 6.
Yes, we'll be around for a while.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody
in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new Royal Newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Tomorrow on GB News Breakfast, we've got a treat for you.
It's me, Angela Rippon.
For just one morning, the Broadcast and Strictly Star joins the breakfast team to bring you all the news as it happens.
Nice positive story then.
Another special day here on GB News.
Well, we're still here after the last one.
GB News Breakfast with me, Stephen Dixon, and Angela Rippon. Tomorrow from 6.
Yes, we'll be around for a while.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live and good morning. I have to say, I'm really enjoying that little sting there, Miriam. It's quite exciting, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's great to have a new show.
It is. We're enjoying being here. And thank you very much for getting in touch on your say. Plenty to read out later. But before we get into that, should rich people fly less so poor families can still take summer holidays? That's what one net zero SAR thinks.
Yes, Emma Pinchbeck, who is the new chief executive of the Climate Change Committee, wants frequent flyers to be taxed more highly than those who fly just once a year, therefore discouraging richer travellers from flying as much while not punishing the poor.
So is that plan prudent or patronising? And joining us now to discuss this is the head of policy at the Global Warming Policy Foundation, Harry Wilkinson, and the managing director of Green Oil UK, Simon Nash. I'll start with you, Harry. What's your take on this debate? I mean, is this not an example of people trying to dictate and order people away from having fun with their hard-earned cash?
Well, this is the latest absolutist and, frankly, miserablest suggestion from the Committee on Climate Change. You know, rich people may not be popular all the time, but those business links, that travel, actually has enormous economic benefits for the UK. We need to be an interconnected country that's trading with the rest of the world. So if we put up barriers and make it more expensive for the world's business leaders to travel to the UK, it's not going to help our economic situation. And quite frankly, we shouldn't be in the business of rationing flights at all. Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, is talking about expanding Heathrow Airport to Luton Airport, all this airport expansion. And it's hard to see how that drive goes hand in hand with, Ed Miliband, who's likely to be, pushing for this to be rationed.
And Simon, that is what this is, isn't it? It's an attempt to impose rationing on something that is sold on the free market. I mean, this is going to end in disaster, either ridiculously high prices, airlines going out of business. I mean, it's just a completely absurd approach.
I think it's actually a great approach if we believe that net zero is a goal that we should achieve. Millions of people around the world live in food insecurity, partly because of climate change, 400,000 deaths per year because of climate change. And of course, we've seen the extreme weather events. This is having an impact on human beings like you and I right now. And if you believe that you should love your neighbour globally, it's important to fly a bit less. It's risen from about 2% of UK emissions to around 8% in a decade.
But that's because overall emissions have gone down. So flying is by definition a higher proportion of that. So that's quite a misleading way to put it.
I don't think that's true. Flying has increased in the last 10 years, and certainly the last 20 years. If you look at British seaside towns, which were thriving holiday resorts 30 years ago, they are now largely closed and decrepit because people are flying more overseas. And we also have to ask the question, do we really want to turn London into a car park for foreign aeroplanes? The economic impact of flying, I think, is actually quite dubious. It largely employs overseas workers, low-paid jobs, and I think the air pollution impacts locally are not good for Londoners or people in the UK. We should be supporting British tourism. And I think a flight tax on maybe flying beyond your third flight a year, and that could subsidise poorer travellers, and maybe even train travel. I've travelled around Europe by train. It's about a third more expensive, and I've been to Ibiza and Germany and other countries by train. And as environmentalists, we're not saying that no one should ever fly, but the truth is only 20% of the world's population are even rich enough to fly. 52% of people in the UK don't fly every year because they're too poor, they choose not to. So it's not about restricting everyone with a blanket tax, which wouldn't be good. Maybe, you all know people that sort of fly several times a year and they enjoy life and they fly for very short trips, even to Scotland or weekend breaks. Well, yeah, maybe they could be taxed a bit more. That would go towards our net zero contribution in carbon offsetting perhaps, or subsidising greener forms of transport. And this would be great for the economy. And again, aviation, it relies on imported fossil fuels, which is not good.
Simon, I've got to bring in Harry here. I've got to bring in Harry here because you're suggesting several things, but I thought the first one was most interesting, this idea that the patriotic thing to do is to not fly abroad, but instead to perhaps take a train on holiday in Britain instead. Harry, are you going to do your patriotic duty and refuse to fly overseas to save the environment and spend more of your cash in England?
Well, I'm afraid it's not patriotic. I mean, I absolutely support the British tourist industry and I want to see that thrive. But, people should be allowed to go on holiday where they want to go on holiday. This is absurd to be talking about the government telling people where they should go on holiday or not. This is not going to help the economy. And it's actual GDP growth that is so important to people, the poorest people, because they've felt the burden of the fact that we've had no growth in real terms per capita GDP over the last decade or more. People are really suffering, and just having an extra burden on the economy is going to hit the poorest hardest. It's not going to help the poorest just to be hurting rich people for the sake of it. And when we look at climate impacts globally, the world is actually seeing far fewer deaths from extreme weather than it was 100 years ago. This has been coming down massively because of the economic growth. That's partly thanks to the fossil fuels which have powered that growth. So this kind of restriction, turning inwards, becoming an isolationist country that doesn't fly around the world, that imposes taxes on everything, it's a road backwards. And it's the poor who will suffer most from this backwards approach.
I mean, actually, people in the UK fly more than the majority of people in the world and even Europe, partly because we have bad weather. But I think it's not inhibitive to the economy. We need green growth, not this endless fossil fuel-driven, dirty aeroplane growth. It can't go on forever. We've got Luton expanding, Heathrow's supposed to be expanding. I hope you'll join me behind the barricades at Climate Camp when that comes back. We successfully stopped a third runway at Heathrow. We protected those beautiful British villages from the impact of aviation there. And it's a great shame that people just want to spend all their money to fly out of our great nation. I don't think that's good for the British economy. Support British tourism, and we've got a great mountain bike industry in Wales and Scotland, some great sporting industries in these great parts of the UK, and you can get there by train in a matter of hours. I mean, it's a great shame that HS2, a big betrayal by the environmental movement, in my opinion, in not supporting HS2. And that's why the government are trying to promote airport expansion as the kind of the B plan. We could have done what Japan did and had great, clean bullet trains, great for the economy, great for
Simon, I think we're going to have to leave it there. Simon Nash, Harry Wilkinson, thank you so much for your time. I mean, isn't this just the fallacy of net zero? Let's just offshore all our emissions to China and then look like we're lowering our...
Yeah, I have to say, if you buy a house in a village by Heathrow Airport and you're upset about the impact of aviation, might I suggest you've perhaps bought a house in the wrong place? But
Indeed.
There we go.
A bit like if you don't like horse racing and live in Aintree, because we are going to see how the crowds are warming up for the Grand National later today. Why the long face?
Well, Sophie Reaper is on the ground.
And the sun is shining here at Aintree, shaping up to be a beautiful day for the Grand National. We'll have all the latest coming up, but first, let's take a look if the weather is just as glorious as some of the top European holiday destinations.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Although some of the sunniest and warmest weather across Europe is in the UK at the moment, there'll still be some fine weather for parts of Spain. However, an area of rain is moving into Portugal, Madeira, just about avoiding Canaries for Sunday. Further east into central, eastern and southern Spain, as well as Gibraltar, sunny spells. Showers for Italy and for Greece, not as lively as the thunderstorms we saw last week. Then it turns a bit colder for Italy and Greece later next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Apart from some low cloud out there during the morning, it's going to be once again a sunny day for the vast majority, feeling warm in the sunshine but feeling cold on the east coast. We've still got this North Sea wind blowing, a brisk wind for southern and eastern parts of the country. The low cloud, inland at least, will burn away by the afternoon, and then it's widespread blue skies once again. But some low cloud will linger across the coast of the north and east of Scotland, as well as northeast England. And here, with that wind, it's going to feel chilly, 8 or 9 Celsius at best. Where we've got the sunshine elsewhere, though, high teens or even low 20s in 1 or 2 spots. So marked contrast in temperature, and for Scotland at least, marked contrast in sunshine and clear skies, with the east and the north seeing some patchy low cloud, whilst cloud-free skies are expected elsewhere. Northern Ireland, barely a cloud in the sky. Northwest England, Wales, likewise, still 16, 17 Celsius into the evening, so a very nice end to the day if you are away from that North Sea coast, where we'll see a thickening of the low cloud once again after the sun goes down. That allows it to creep back inland, most likely parts of eastern and southeastern Scotland, but some patches for the Pennines as well. And with that brisk wind continuing overnight, it's going to be a frost-free night for many, but for some sheltered spots in northern England and Scotland, a touch of frost is possible. Then a very similar day on Sunday. We've got some low cloud around at first, particularly towards the northeast. That's going to linger around the coasts of the north and east of Scotland through the morning and into the afternoon, but otherwise it just disappears and blue skies are expected widely. Lighter winds. As a result, it's not going to feel quite as chilly on the east coast, and the high pressure we've got this weekend sticks around throughout much of next week as well, so more sunshine to come.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back, and it's time for the Great British Giveaway, and it's the biggest prize we've ever given away.
Oh, it is indeed. It's your chance to drive away with a brand new 4-berth motorhome worth over £67,000.
And that's not all. As well, we'll also give you £5,000 in cash. Do you want the chance to become our biggest winner to date?
Well, if you do, here are all the details you need.
We're making the Great British Giveaway a getaway with a chance to win our biggest prize to date. You could be the proud owner of this Elneg Baron 560 motorhome, worth over £67,000. Supplied brand new from Marquis Leisure, you could be exploring Great Britain and beyond this summer and making memories to last a lifetime. This motorhome comfortably sleeps 4, has its own kitchen and bathroom spaces, and comes complete with all of the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle of this calibre. And that's not all, as we'll also give you £5,000 in tax-free cash so you can get started on your next adventure as soon as possible. For a chance to win a motorhome and cash, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yes, good luck if you do enter that competition. But it's Grand National Day with the famous race at Aintree Racecourse set to get underway this afternoon.
Well, let's join GB News Northwest reporter Sophie Reaper, who's at Aintree. How are the crowds warming up today, Sophie?
It is absolutely beautiful here at Aintree, Miriam, and the crowds are starting to pour in. Those gates opened in the last hour or so, and they're starting to pour in. We're expecting around 50 to 60,000 people here at Aintree today, and there'll be about 800 million tuning in at home. That's 800 million people, because it is the highlight of the racing season. It's the spectacular. It was described earlier as the pièce de résistance in the racing calendar, and I think you can see behind me that people really do get involved in Aintree. People are wearing their finery, they've got their hats on, they're soaking it up. Now, to talk about the Grand National, last year it was I Am Maximus that took the crown, and he's actually the bookies' favourite once again this year. Now, that would be really interesting if he was able to bag the title once again, because it's only been done as the double twice before now. So many of our viewers will remember that it was Tiger Roll in 2018-19 who managed to do that double, but it hadn't been done before then since 1973-74, when, of course, it was the iconic Red Rum who took the title there. So it'd be interesting to see if it's I Am Maximus who wins today, or if it's one of those other outsiders. You just never know when it comes to the Grand National.
Sophie, it's a fabulous dress today, but I'm not sure if you've seen, but the Sun newspaper actually included your outfit yesterday as one of the iconic revellers in Aintree. Are you going to get in the papers today as well?
I did see that actually, Charlie, and actually breakfast felt the need to show it as well. I have had my picture taken today, so you never know. Maybe I'll be in the paper again tomorrow. Who knows? But that's not what it's about. We're here to enjoy the atmosphere. It's always an amazing day at Aintree. The people of Liverpool and beyond are always getting involved. It's always so much fun, and that's what it's really all about.
Okay, Sophie Reaper, thank you so much. I think she's in for a good chance with that dress. And we'll speak to you later, Sophie. Thank you so much.
And at least it's not raining. It looks a bit windy, but not too bad.
It looks glorious.
So, yes, we'll be coming back to Sophie later, but we've got lots more to come, including more of today's top stories with our panel Lynn May and Eve McQuillan. And is there a crisis in motherhood and parenting?
Now, we'll go live back to our West Midlands reporter, Jack Carson, at the farm in St Osyth. He's got some fabulous guests coming up, a possible person of great interest to our audience at home. I can't say who it is, but I think he'll want to be there at the start of the next hour, trust me. And we'll also be discussing the free speech impact on those tariffs with Washington. Is censorship blocking Britain from getting a better deal with the US?
Well, you're watching Saturday Morning Live with Miriam and Charlie, only on GB News. See you shortly.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. High pressure continues to be in charge and will do for the rest of the weekend into next week as well. There is a bit of a cool breeze coming in off the North Sea, and we can see that high pressure sat to the north of the UK, so we've got easterly breeze, so coastal stretches in the east will be on the chilly side, but further west feeling quite warm in that sunshine, though the wind's still gusty, particularly across Wales, the West Country, gusts of 30-40 miles an hour in exposed locations. Some low cloud across northeast England into eastern Scotland will limit the sunshine here, but for most, blue skies across the whole of the country, and temperatures reaching 20-21 Celsius towards the south and the west. Chillier further north and east, temperatures struggling under the cloud, 9 or 10 Celsius across parts of northeast England into Scotland. Into the evening time, we remain with some low cloud across the north and the east of Scotland, but otherwise a fine end to the day for many. Plenty of sunshine across the country, and the same for Northern Ireland. Still breezy around the coast, temperatures around 12 or 13 Celsius. Low cloud across northeast England. Otherwise, cloudless skies for much of the UK, and temperatures 17-18 Celsius into the evening, which is quite high for the time of year, but still quite breezy, making it feel a little cooler. Temperatures will fall away as we head overnight. Some low cloud moving back inland across parts of Scotland, northern England, mist and fog patches possible. The winds start to ease a little, and that will allow some mist and fog patches to form and a patchy frost as well. Towns and cities holding up just above freezing, but in the countryside we could see temperatures dipping to around about -1, -2 Celsius. So a fresh start to Sunday morning, but plenty of sunshine, mist and fog clearing. The low cloud just starting to drift further north as well, affecting Orkney and Shetland. Some hazy sunshine across the northeast, otherwise blue skies for many. The wind's a little lighter than Saturday as well. Temperatures, though, generally around the mid-teens, locally towards 18 to 20 in the southwest.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with skyroof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For a chance to win a motorhome and cash, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Tomorrow on GB News Breakfast, we've got a treat for you.
It's me, Angela Rippon.
For just one morning, the broadcast and Strictly Star joins the breakfast team to bring you all the news as it happens.
Nice positive story then.
Another special day here on GB News.
Well, we're still here after the last one.
GB News Breakfast with me, Stephen Dixon, and Angela Rippon. Tomorrow from 6.
Yes, we'll be around for a while.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
please bring us up to date.
Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 11 a.m. on Saturday the 5th of April, live across the United Kingdom. This is Saturday Morning Live with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates.
Well, it's the word on everyone's lips this morning as US President Donald Trump's economic policies take effect.
Tariffs, 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 tariff, tariffs, tariffs, tariffs. It's a beautiful word, isn't it?
Yes, those 10% baseline tariffs introduced by President Trump came into effect at 5 a.m. this morning. But what does it mean for the UK? And could our laws on free speech be playing a part? We'll be joined by top guests throughout today to unpick the detail.
And in other news, King Charles is forced to deny involvement with an alleged Chinese spy after being dragged into the Prince Andrew scandal.
And another farm funding crisis. A farm in St Osyth that caters for visitors with disabilities and mental health challenges is in need of desperate funds. MP for Clacton-on-Sea, Nigel Farage, will join us later in the show. Jack Carson is there with the story.
Well, we're all getting stuck into it here on Sandy's farm just outside Clacton. This community care farm needs desperate funding. We're here. We've already raised thousands of pounds, but let's see if we can keep it going. We'll be joined by Nigel shortly.
And Russell Brand charged. The comedian and actor has been charged with rape and sexual assault following an investigation by the Metropolitan Police, allegations which he denies.
And is motherhood in crisis? Well, new data shows young women in England and Wales are likely to have only one child by the time they're 35 in what's being labelled baby deserts. We'll speak to an expert as fertility rates dwindle.
And giddy up, it's Grand National Day. And the GB News North West of England reporter Sophie Reaper is on the ground at Aintree.
Well, in just over 5 hours' time, the champion of the 177th annual Grand National will be brought here to the winners' enclosure. We'll have all the latest from here at Aintree.
Well, we'll have the biggest stories, the boldest opinions and the liveliest debates over the next 2 hours. I'm Miriam Cates.
And I'm Charlie Peters, and your weekend starts here.
Don't forget, of course, we want to hear from you. We'd love to hear what you think about all the stories that we're discussing today. So send your views, post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/yoursay.
Yeah, and what do you want Jack Carson to ask Nigel Farage? He's coming up just shortly from that farm in St Osyth, where Jack's been raving about the spectacular sun. But before we get to that weather, that Jack and that Nigel, Sophia Hill has all of your news headlines.
Very good morning. It's just gone 11 o'clock. These are your latest headlines. The top story this morning, the UK wakes up to a 10% tariff on UK goods imported into the US as President Trump's trade tariffs come into force. President Donald Trump announced global tariffs earlier this week on his so-called Liberation Day, as he claimed that the global trade system was unfair on the US and workers had suffered. Investment firm JP Morgan have warned that the odds of a global recession have now spiked from 40% to 60%, saying there will be blood. Yesterday, America and China declared a trade war, while Sir Keir Starmer is expected to spend the weekend speaking to global leaders as they attempt to navigate this new era in trade. From tomorrow, new parents with a child in neonatal care will be entitled to an additional 12 weeks of leave and pay on top of parental leave, if eligible. The leave will apply to parents of babies who are admitted into neonatal care up to 28 days old and who have a continuous stay in care for 7 full days or longer. The Department for Business and Trade said the measure will aim to relieve some of the pressure on working families. Prematurity charities say they are delighted with the right coming into force after years of campaigning. And a man has been charged with the murder of a 16-year-old boy after he was stabbed in the neck in a town centre. The incident occurred in Ramsden Street, Huddersfield, at about 2:45 on Thursday, according to West Yorkshire Police. The 20-year-old Alfie Franco will appear at Leeds Magistrates Court on Saturday. And a US governmental department has said it is disappointed by the conviction of a UK campaigner who protested outside an abortion clinic. Livia Tisici-Bolt was sentenced to a 2-year conditional discharge after breaking a public space protection order on 2 occasions. The 64-year-old held a sign saying, "Here to talk if you want," near the clinic in March last year. GB News spoke to the lawyer who represented Livia Tisici-Bolt about this earlier on.
But what I find really disappointing is that it's taken the US State Department to comment on the censorship crisis in this country. We had Number 10 referring to Livia's case as something that may well portray harassment. So equating peaceful behaviour as harassment is a despicable lack of leadership.
And some royal news. The King and Queen will spend their 20th wedding anniversary as guests of honour at a state banquet held in Rome. King Charles and Queen Camilla will be attending a black-tie dinner held as part of the couple's 4-day state visit to Italy next week. The King first met his wife on the polo field in 1970 when he had just left Cambridge University, a year before he joined the Royal Navy. And it's Grand National Day. Racegoers are gearing up at Aintree today with thousands expected to fill the stands. 34 horses are set to race in the prestigious event this afternoon, with last year's winners, Iron Maximus, looking strong with the bookies. This year's Grand National will be the greyest in living memory, with 7 grey runners accounting for more than 20% of the field. The one lucky winner will take home in excess of £500,000. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More in half an hour, but now it's back to Miriam and Charlie.
Hello and welcome back. You're watching and listening to Saturday Morning Live with Charlie Peters and Miriam Kate, and you've been getting in touch with your views. Lots of comments on this proposed air travel tax for wealthier people. Grumpy Grandad, studio favourite, says, "It used to be great having a break by the seaside in the UK, but now all the hotels are being used to house migrants and used as bail hostels. They've even managed to destroy our seaside towns. Anyone been to Blackpool recently?" And of course, this is one of the reasons why people are flying abroad rather than taking holidays in the UK. Well, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also heard from John Carter, who said that even if Britain was carbon-free, what help is that to the world? Because India, China and Russia are building coal-fired sites almost every month. Yeah, I think you'll find a lot of people agreeing with that.
And on that, James Barker says the tax will only affect us, Brits, flying to other places, not foreigners flying here. A very good point.
Say no more. Well, let's move on now, because a farm in St Osyth that caters for visitors with disabilities and mental health challenges is in desperate need of funds.
Yes, the owner says they have only about a month left of money and they will have to shut if they don't receive any more funding.
Well, we're joined now by our GB News reporter Jack Carson, who's also being joined by a special guest.
Yeah, good morning to you both. Well, we're here once again at Sandy's farm. We've been here this morning. Our fantastic viewers have raised more than £6,000 for this farm. She was saying they're in desperate need of some funding in order to be able to keep the fantastic work in the community that it does. We are surrounded by beautiful animals. You can see these horses here. We've got a little Shetland having a bit of breakfast this morning. And as you were mentioning as well, Charlie, we're joined by Nigel Farage, of course, MP for this area. Nigel, thank you for joining us this morning. This is such a fantastic place for this community here in your constituency, isn't it?
Well, it is. Good morning. And we can hear some fairly active chickens behind me as we speak. Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful sunny day. That helps. But no, it's a lovely spot. And the thing is, particularly for kids, too many of whom seem to be obsessed by electronic devices and maybe not going outside very much, and almost a sort of a break in a link of understanding the animal kingdom, how it all works. So you've got everything here. I've just seen a one-day-old guinea pig to horses they've got here that have been, abused animals that they brought in and given a good home to. There's some pigs here that escaped from a massive fire. So but it's some very good work. And yet, all the Clacton schools come through here. Of particular importance, I think, are the special educational needs, and there's quite a bit of that in this area. And for kids like that, you know, don't get the opportunity to go out and do fun things, for them to come and touch the animals and play with the animals a bit and learn about things. So I very much want to see it continue. But obviously, you can't run these things for free. You know, the guys that run it don't even take a salary out of it. They do it for the love of what they do. So yes, I'm very much behind this campaign to raise the money to keep this going, and I want to see it here year after year to come.
And you were mentioning there the impact that it can have with people with disabilities or special educational needs. It's amazing what animals can do and the skills that they can learn from that. Is that, do you think, missing from education generally, that kids aren't growing up learning the kind of skills of learning with animals and learning about that? You'll be able to be here, touch them, you'll be around these different kinds of animals that we've got at the farm here.
Yeah, I also think sort of the kind of rural life and farm life is so far away from like 95% plus of young children who grow up in towns, who grow up in big cities, who just don't connect with the big outdoors, don't connect with the countryside. So I think just come, I mean, you just have a look around you. It's an absolutely beautiful spot, incredibly peaceful, amazing place to be. So yeah, I think this is very, very good for kids. And hey, you know, that's not to say also there are adults. They take these animals around to some of the old people's homes and things like that. But it's particularly for kids, and particularly for those special educational need kids. Coming to a place like this does them a lot of good.
Do you worry then, with the tariffs that have come in this morning, about the impact that they could have on farms? You're, of course, the MP for a very rural constituency. Do you worry about the impact that the tariffs will have on those farmers?
Yeah, I mean, we have 100 farms in this constituency. They're mostly small farms, mostly family farms. I don't worry so much for them about tariffs because most of their produce is going to be sold within the United Kingdom. It'll affect the bigger people more significantly. I worry obviously about inheritance tax and how many of these old traditional family, which are going on 5, 6, 7 generations, I worry very much about that. And I think one of the reasons that the English countryside, British countryside, is as beautiful as it is, it's the way families have tended that land over many, many years. So I'm deeply concerned about that. I'm deeply concerned that big agribusinesses will buy the whole thing up. I worry that, you know, in Grade 1 farmland in Lincolnshire, we're putting massive solar panels built by Chinese slave labour. I mean, I do worry about many of these things. I really, really do. I think more broadly on the tariffs, I've written a piece in today's Daily Telegraph where I actually think this is a very important moment. The fact that Trump gave us 10% tariffs, which by the way is not good, but the fact that he gave us 10%, not 20%, kind of shows you the world now views us differently, that we've left the European Union. We now have got to take that opportunity. Let's now do Brexit properly. Let's become more competitive than any other country in Europe, and we can do that by getting rid of so much EU regulation, something we failed to do completely under the last Conservative government. You know, they said, oh, well, we were so busy with the pandemic. Well, whatever the reasons, you know, everything from fishing to financial services, we can make things more streamlined, we can make things more competitive. We shouldn't even think about tariff retaliation. In fact, we should do the opposite. We should start lowering tariffs for food, for products from around the world. Let's become a truly competitive economy. So I actually think this could be a wake-up call that if we get it right, could really benefit us.
Well, what are the chances of that happening? We know that Starmer's going to meet leaders with Europe and across the world. Do you possibly about reciprocal tariffs? What impact would, if we were to put reciprocal tariffs on, that would go in the opposite way to what you were just talking about there?
Well, the European Union have made it fairly clear that they will reciprocate in some way. Canada will reciprocate in some way. China already has reciprocated. We should not do so. We should rise above this, become a much more competitive country, we'll be a lot richer as a result. Starmer's problem is, on the one hand, he's quite enjoying the Brexit freedoms of being the bridge between America and the other European NATO allies. He's clearly privately delighted that it's 10%, not 20%. I mean, that's fairly obvious. But he keeps talking about an EU reset. And if we reset ourselves closer back towards the European Union and back towards European Union laws, that'll make doing deals with America or many other parts of the world more difficult. So he is in a tricky spot. You know, we know that Starmer was the great Remainer. We know that Starmer wanted a second referendum. But I just begin to wonder whether in number 10, a few of them aren't scratching their heads thinking, do you know what? there's actually a real opportunity here.
Nigel Farage, thank you so much for joining us this morning. You heard here, his thoughts on those tariffs coming in today, but also what this fantastic community farm here, just outside Clacton, Sandy's Farm, means to his constituency, to his community here that he represents. And of course, if you want to try and help fund and donate towards Sandy's Farm, you can go to GoFundMe.com and just search Sandy's Farm.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jack Carson, and such an important cause. Thank you so much. And Miriam, we heard Nigel there being challenged by Jack about his perspective on those tariffs, how they could affect farms in Britain. He sort of dodged the question, didn't he? Going straight to talking
about small family farms.
Yeah, talking about inheritance tax and talking also about solar panels. But the fact of the matter is, the UK food and drinks industry, they do send a couple of £1 billion a year over to the US, and it is specialist goods. Yeah. The Americans, they like the salmon, the smoked salmon, the whiskies, the cheeses we produce. Now, there are lots of big companies there, but it is also a lot of small, family, long-standing organisations involved in that, and they will be affected.
Yes, and they're not markets that can be easily replaced. They're not just going to suddenly dump smoked salmon on the UK.
Yeah,
we don't buy that much, though we should probably buy more.
Well, on those 10% tariffs that took effect at 8 a.m, that had a big impact because stock markets plummeted and the odds of a global recession spiked from 40 to 60%.
But overnight, the president posted on Truth Social, his social media platform, saying big business is not worried about the tariffs because they know they're here to stay. And yesterday, America and China declared this trade war, but this morning, Sir Keir Starmer is reportedly in a bid to secure a deal for the UK with the US.
Well, joining us now is foreign policy analyst and columnist Lee Cohen. Lee, what chances do we have of getting that special deal with the US?
Well, good morning, Charlie and Miriam, and many thanks for having me on. Trump's tariff plan is a golden opportunity for post-Brexit Britain. It reinforces sovereignty, boosts competitiveness, enables an unprecedented and necessary strategic pivot, and it rejects EU dependence. Far from a threat, it's a catalyst for Britain to realize the UK's full potential economically, politically, and globally. And as you mentioned just now, certainly the markets will experience volatility in the upcoming days, weeks, and months. However, the critics who claim that Trump is mistaken have a track record of being incorrect on almost every significant geopolitical and economic issue for a decade. A lot has been made of the censorship issue, if that's an impediment. Censorship in the UK isn't just a domestic issue. It's a real roadblock to securing a better trade deal with the United States, which is certainly advisable, especially on tariffs. Look, Trump's tariff strategy is about leverage and bringing countries to the table to negotiate fairer terms for workers and businesses here. And that makes sense because, of course, as everyone knows, he's famously America first. Why wouldn't he? The UK facing a 10% tariff, which isn't insignificant, but still, it has a golden opportunity to strike a deal that could ease or even eliminate that burden.
But Lee, President Trump's primary aim in issuing these tariffs is not really a diplomatic one. It is one to try and restore American industry, to try and reshore the kind of manufacturing jobs that have been lost, particularly amongst the white working classes over previous decades, the voters that are his base. So if he's successful, if he does manage to reshore some of these manufacturing businesses, how does that then affect the UK and other countries who then, obviously, well, particularly China, would lose a massive market?
Well, Miriam, it's a good question. Reactions from my British friends have been supportive and positive. Frustrated with the Starmer government's disastrous economic policies, heavy taxation, and neglect of citizens, they admire Trump's nation-first stance, seeing it as actually as a model for the UK to follow under future post-Starmer leadership. Unsurprising that many of these voices trust Trump more than the current UK or EU leaders, hoping his actions will inspire a new world order, which goes way beyond simply industrial or trade relations, a new world order that values national interests over globalist agendas.
And Lee, OK, let's be frank. This is not going to change British free speech legislation. The Starmer government have made it very clear that they don't believe there's a problem with censorship in Britain. This State Department approach of saying that if you change your speech laws, we might give you a better deal on tariffs, that's only going to make the issue of censorship bigger and more difficult to overcome in Britain, surely.
Well, Charlie, Labour's obsession with controlling speech online doesn't just clash with American values of free expression. It's a practical hurdle. And why? Because it signals to the Trump administration that that the Starmer's UK isn't fully open for business in the digital age, where tech and data flows are king. If the UK wants to dodge these tariffs and lock in a sweetheart deal, they need to show flexibility, maybe roll back some of the nanny state oversight on the internet.
Well, Lee Cohen, thank you so much for your time.
I have to say, Mira, I'm not sure about this idea that they're Labour's speech laws. I mean, there were plenty of, Communications Act interventions from the Tories previously, and the Online Safety Act that he was just referring to there. So,
well, and the buffer zone law that we've been talking about was, of course, I mean, it was a Labour amendment, but it was passed under a Conservative government. There's a lot of undoing and repealing to do if we're going to get back to a default position of free speech.
And in the headlines today, we're learning that there are 33 Communications Act arrests a day in Britain. Are we going to see that shift away under the pressure from Washington? I have to say, I'm not convinced.
No, me neither. I think we'll have to see legislative change. Anyway, time for the Great British Giveaway. It's the biggest prize we've ever given away.
Because it's your chance to drive away with a brand new 4-berth motorhome worth over £67,000.
And that's not all. As well, we'll be giving you £5,000 in cash. So do you want the chance to become our biggest winner to date?
Of course you do. Here's all the details you need.
We're making the Great British Giveaway a getaway with a chance to win our biggest prize to date. You could be the proud owner of this Elneg Baron 560 motorhome worth over £67,000. Supplied brand new from Marquis Leisure, you could be exploring Great Britain and beyond this summer and making memories to last a lifetime. This motorhome comfortably sleeps 4, has its own kitchen and bathroom spaces, and comes complete with all of the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle of this calibre. And that's not all, as we'll also give you £5,000 in tax-free cash so you can get started on your next adventure as soon as possible. For a chance to win a motorhome and cash, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yes, good luck indeed. And still to come, are we witnessing a crisis in motherhood and parenting? Well, shocking new ONS stats today out on how low our birth rate is and how many women have been put off becoming mothers.
Well, next, we'll take a look at this morning's Saturday papers, because you are watching Saturday Morning Live on GB News, Britain's news channel. Don't go anywhere.
GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Britain's Newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
I'm going to start with you, George Keywood. I understand you are taking some of these weight loss tablets or injections. Tell me about what they've done for you. Where were you to begin with and where are you now?
Well, I'm 25 kilos down, so, they've definitely worked. They've definitely helped me. Thank you for the applause.
Why is he getting a round of applause?
That's amazing.
You're just getting an injection there. You haven't done anything.
Well, I haven't done anything. Obviously, you know, I
You're
still
just taking
have
an
to
injection.
stop eating. You know, just because I'm taking an injection doesn't mean that I'm not actually contributing to this weight loss journey. The whole point of the injection is to suppress the appetite.
So you're not contributing. It is suppressing your appetite.
Yeah, and you could still overeat if you wanted to, but you'd be physically sick on the floor.
So you can't.
I mean, you can. I've done it before. I've had a pizza and I've thrown it up an hour later.
You tried to cheat even that. Go on, carry on.
Look, the point is, right, it's an injection to help people. It doesn't do the job for you. You know, you've still got to put some effort in there, and you've still got to, you know, work out and lose weight naturally as well alongside of it. It's an aid in losing weight. It is not the thing that's going to magically just shade 10 stone off you and you're going to be all fit and healthy. It doesn't work like that. You know, it suppresses the appetite, but you've still got to put the work in there, and you've still got to stop yourself from eating, you know.
Ben Lloyd, has George cheated his way to weight loss?
I wouldn't say it's cheating as such. I'd only say it's cheating if you're doing it and outwardly saying that, oh, I'm not doing anything, it's just hard work and training. But my main forte is that you could still do it without that. And I've just briefly looked into it, and I counted over 30 side effects. And with diet and exercise alone, you could do the same job with no side effects.
The People's Channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning and welcome back to Saturday Morning Live with me, Charlie Peters, and Miriam Cates. Now, to look through the top stories of the day, we're joined by a wonderful panel, political commentator Eve McQuillan and the broadcaster Lynn May.
Yes, welcome, ladies. Thanks for coming back. Well, let's start with this story in The Times about universities reviewing their trans policies. Of course, you'll remember that Sussex University was fined over £500,000, actually. That's, of course, the university where Professor Kathleen Stock had to step down after a campaign of harassment. Do you think, then, that this free speech law, this pro-free speech law, finally has had a positive effect if universities are having to review their position?
You know, definitely. And just to recap quickly, Kathleen Stock essentially was saying at many of her, lectures that gender is immutable. There's a man and a woman, and I think many of us biologically agree with that. If you want to identify as something else, that's your prerogative, but biology is biology. And she came under so much fire. And I think the annoying thing is I know trans people, I've got trans friends, and their frustration is many people are talking on our behalf. So many people said, we are afraid of our life. We're in fear, living in fear. And many trans people said, no, we're not. These people like to spin a rhetoric and, there were calls for her to be sacked and so on and so forth. And then, so this is a great result, I think, that they were fined, because freedom of speech has completely, been prevented in these spaces, and lecturers should have that freedom to be able to say things which are academically correct.
And Eve, when you hear about these debates about free speech on campus, we've been having them for the best part of a decade now. Yeah. Do you think there's going to be a shift now that there is a threat of monetary punishment?
Perhaps, yeah. I mean, I think this is a really difficult one for universities to deal with, because I think it's right and proper that universities have policies to protect trans students, to protect gay students, to protect women students, etc.
Protect them from what? Some ideas? Or?
No, not from ideas, from bullying and harassment.
OK.
What's happened in Kathleen Stock's case, clearly she has her academic freedom to say what she wants. What she says, of course, is that she was bullied out and her colleagues didn't stick up for her. And her colleagues may well say they didn't stick up for her because they didn't agree with her ideas.
But the Sussex University weren't actually fined in relation to Kathleen Stock's departure. They were fined in relation to their policies, which said things like people can use the toilets that they choose to based on their gender identity. And these are the policies that universities are now reviewing. And of course, no one should be harassed, but that's completely different to say you have to accept a man in your toilets.
Yeah.
So I think the reason that they were fined is because, looking at this case, they had a requirement that their curriculums had to positively represent trans people. And I think that's interesting because the curriculum should not be based on harmful stereotypes. We know that, and we've seen that a lot through history. Curriculum should be questioning that. But positively representing a certain point of view, I think there could be some free speech challenge.
I think intent matters as well. Like, there's a difference between these are my ideas, this is, you know, what I've researched, or using something which is an idea to actually bully. And I think the two are being conflated at the moment.
Well, before we move on to our next story, I've got a statement from a spokesperson for the University of Sussex, who said that universities must be able to have policies and expectations of behaviour that support respectful communication and enable us to manage cultural tensions on campus.
Yes, and it goes on. Under this ruling, we believe that universities would not be permitted to expect their staff and students to treat each other with civility and respect. The OFS is effectively decreeing libertarian free speech absolutism as the fundamental principle for UK universities. In our view, the OFS is perpetuating the culture wars.
Well, there you go. Well, let's move on to emojis, shall we? Away from these libertarian culture wars, because a new survey of 2,000 adults has revealed bizarre reasons Brits are breaking up with one another. And Lynn, it seems that emojis is one of them.
I think this is absurd. I can't see you to have a very good relationship if you're breaking up with someone because they sent you maybe too many emojis. OK, many would agree that emoji usage in your adult life is slightly on the corny side, but I don't think it's any reason to. And you would, once you decide to be with someone, you should know if they tend to use emojis. And it's interesting because the one after that is a disdain or dislike for TV shows and preferences of film. So I think, should the question be raised, are people, you know, finishing with people for minuscule situations now? We're not sticking at relationships anymore.
Have you ever got the ick from a fella because of his emoji usage?
Well, I'm in a long-term loving relationship with a man who uses a normal amount of emojis. And I have
What's the normal amount?
What's the normal amount? The occasional heart or laughing face, nothing more than that. It really gives me the ick because I want to be in a relationship with an adult, not a teenager, and oh no, I don't like it. But don't be in a relationship with someone who you don't like, and it's your business.
That's true.
What the reason is.
I mean, it can be quite amusing sometimes when people have different views of what a particular emoji
what they mean.
You know, I think some people get confused between the laughing crying emoji and the actual crying emoji, and so you get, you know,
lost
a
in
tragic
translation.
story. You know, my cat got run over. Ha ha ha. I mean, it does a bit of miscommunication. Yeah.
My granddad in our family group chat keeps accidentally sending in the most bizarre emoji reactions, and I love him for it. But every time he sends a new completely non-related emoji, we make it the group reaction. So currently it's a robot arm. And there is, we've not been discussing robotics recently, nor, you know, the strength of our biceps. So I don't know really what...
He's just testing it out. He's like, I wonder what would happen if I do that. What's the reaction?
Pretty picture. Let's give it a go. No, good old
well,
Ken.
please do let us know your favourite emojis. I don't know whether yours say does emojis. Well, try it out. We'll see.
Please do. Well, there's lots more coming up on the show today. Thank you, Lynn and Eve, for that. But first, let's get the news headlines with Sophia Hill.
Very good morning. It's just gone 11:30. These are your latest headlines. Now, the top story this morning, the UK woke up to a 10% tariff on UK goods imported into the US as President Trump's trade tariffs came into force. President Donald Trump announced global tariffs earlier this week on his so-called Liberation Day, as he claimed that the global trade system was unfair on the US and workers had suffered. Investment firm JP Morgan have warned that the odds of a global recession have now spiked from 40% up to 60%, saying there will be blood. Now, yesterday, America and China declared a trade war, whilst Keir Starmer is expected to spend the weekend speaking to global leaders as they attempt to navigate this new era in trade. From tomorrow, new parents with a child in neonatal care will be entitled to an additional 12 weeks of leave and pay on top of parental leave if they're eligible. The leave will apply to the parents of babies who are admitted into neonatal care up to 28 days old and who have continuous stay in care for 7 full days or longer. The Department for Business and Trade said the measure will aim to relieve some of the pressure on working families. Pro-maturity charities say they are delighted with the right coming into force after years of campaigning. And a man has been charged with the murder after a 16-year-old boy was stabbed in the neck in a town centre. The incident occurred in Ramsden Street, Huddersfield, at around 2:45 on Thursday, according to West Yorkshire Police. The 20-year-old Alfie Franco will appear in Leeds Magistrates Court on Saturday. And it's Grand National Day. Racegoers are gearing up at Aintree today, with thousands expected to fill the stands. 34 horses are set to race in the prestigious event this afternoon, with last year's winner, I Am Maximus, looking strong with the bookies. This year's Grand National will be the greyest in living memory, with 7 grey runners accounting for more than 20% of the field. And, of course, one lucky winner will take home in excess of £500,000. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thanks, Sophia, and stay with us because after the break we'll be galloping up to Aintree because it's that Grand National Day.
Indeed, and we're also going to be speaking to a parenting expert about whether or not there is a crisis in motherhood, with more and more women delaying having children or not having children at all, complaints about how difficult it is to juggle everything. We'll be asking what's next for Britain's mums. That's all.
Have
you got the answer to that, Jack?
Yeah, or maybe I should just be explaining the motherhood thing, Miriam. We'll crack on with that.
Sure, you know everything there is to know.
Yeah, well, you know, you can just read about it, sort it out. Well, all this and more. We're still getting used to this tease by the screen, by the way, but all this and more coming up after the break on Saturday Morning Live.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Tomorrow on GB News Breakfast, we've got a treat for you.
It's me, Angela Rippon.
For just one morning, the Broadcast and Strictly Star joins the breakfast team to bring you all the news as it happens.
Nice positive story then.
Another special day here on GB News.
Well, we're still here after the last one.
GB News Breakfast with me, Stephen Dixon, and Angela Rippon. Tomorrow from 6.
Yes, we'll be around for a while.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Tomorrow on GB News Breakfast, we've got a treat for you.
It's me, Angela Rippon.
For just one morning, the Broadcast and Strictly Star joins the breakfast team to bring you all the news as it happens.
Nice positive story then.
Another special day here on GB News.
Well, we're still here after the last one.
GB News Breakfast with me, Stephen Dixon, and Angela Rippon. Tomorrow from 6.
Yes, we'll be around for a while.
welcome back to Saturday Morning Live with me, Charlie Peters, and Miriam Cates. Now, we're very happy to say that a different programme, GB News Breakfast, has been nominated for a Trick Award again. Now, we've reached the long list for the best news programme, and we need your help. All of these awards are voted for you at home, so please do scan the QR code on screen right now or go to poll-trick.org.uk to vote for GB News Breakfast.
Now, Charlie's too modest to say, but we're also delighted to announce that Charlie himself has been nominated for another Trick Award in the Best News Presenter category. So please go and vote for Charlie.
Yeah, please go and vote for us both. But yeah, the picture, director Tom in my ear is saying that the photo of me there looks rather strange. I have to say, I didn't choose it, but I'm happy for your vote more than your assessment of my strange, squished face.
And if you want to make an assessment, there's always your say. Well, moving on, are we witnessing a crisis in motherhood and in parenting more generally? From American singer Chappell Roan making the headlines for saying that none of her friends with children are happy, to this piece from The Telegraph, where an anonymous woman admits to regretting having children. There does seem to be a current trend of talking parenthood down.
And that comes as new data from the Office for National Statistics shows young women in England and Wales are likely to have just one child by the time they are 35. Well, joining us now is the Professor of Family and Parenting Research at the University of Kent, Ellie Lee. Ellie, how much of this is due to cultural factors, and is it just really about the bottom line costs of parenting?
No, I don't think it is just about costs. I think we're in a situation now where mothers particularly, but I also think men as well, are finding it harder to see how you give meaning to this experience. The Telegraph article I thought was very interesting. I mean, there's some points raised in it about the effect of COVID, which undoubtedly made things very difficult for parents and children. So that needs discussing specifically. But I think the general points that are raised in it about the ambivalence of motherhood and the difficulty that can be experienced with living life both as a woman and as a mother, that's quite a long-term problem. I mean, it's not new for this to be an experience that people have, where because we live in the society in a contradictory way. We're two things at once. Men live as men and fathers, women live as women and mothers, and that's the reality of it. I mean, you can go back and look at all sorts of literature that captures this. So, Freud said there's two things that give our life meaning as humans in the modern world. One is work and one is love. And we have to find ways of giving meaning to both that can make sense to us. And I think the situation that we're in at the moment is where it has become very difficult. I mean, that person writing that article says in it, she's saying out loud, I regret having children. I shouldn't think there's many mothers, myself included, who at some point in the upbringing of their children haven't said, God, I wish I hadn't done this. Because there's things about it are difficult. But the question in the society is how we generate meaning structures in our culture which can enable people to see that what they're doing is worthwhile and important and worth investing time and sacrifice into, because it is difficult to do this. I think we've got ourselves into a real mess with it. I think that the way we talk about parenting is part of it. We've turned it into a skill set that you learn, like some sort of job training, which distances people so much from what needs to be the real content of all of this.
What really struck me about this piece in The Telegraph was where the lady says she had this difficult labour, 47-hour labour, and then all she could think of afterwards was, can someone please take the baby away so I can sleep, until it dawned on me that I was responsible and I had to get up. And isn't this the heart of the problem, that in times gone by, extended family and friends surrounded a woman after she'd given birth, taking all the other responsibilities of life off her so that she could focus on her physical recovery and on looking after the baby. And that was normal for thousands and thousands of years. And now just suddenly we expect a woman who's just gone through a really biologically difficult process to just get up and do it all and carry on.
I think that's very true. I mean, that whole narrative is extremely lonely. And what you get a sense of when you read it is that she feels very isolated, and there's not much around her, which is helping with this. And it's a really pat phrase, it takes a village, but it does take a village. and family and community are cultural accomplishments within which people raise their children, and they've become weakened. I mean, in my own work at the moment, I've gone back to a very old concept in sociology from Max Weber, disenchantment, and the way in which society can disenchant people from feeling like they've got a stake in its continuity and aspects of it. And once that starts to happen, people find it very difficult to see things through. And I think we are living in a time of quite profound disenchantment. And I think that the immediate roots lie actually from the 1970s, where I think that with issues around family and communities, a lot has happened, which is almost proactively disenchanted people from family and community. And seeing the meaning of all of that and how you, in your own life and in your own way, create meaning in your life through those aspects of society. And I find it interesting in the way the family gets talked about now. And people talk about the traditional family. When people use that phrase now, they talk about it as if it's just this terrible thing. It's almost like a term of abuse.
I'm afraid, I'm really sorry, Ellie, but we are going to have to leave it there. We're out of time, but it's absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much, and we'd love to have you back again because this is such an important issue.
There's a lot to talk about.
Indeed.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ellie. Thank you. Well, still to come, we'll go live to Aintree to see how the crowds are warming up for the Grand National later today, and our very own Sophie Reaper is on the ground.
Well, the sky is blue and the sun is shining, and there are thousands of people now pouring into Aintree. We'll have all the latest in very short amount of time, but first let's take a look at the weather in some top European holiday destinations.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Although some of the sunniest and warmest weather across Europe is in the UK at the moment, there'll still be some fine weather for parts of Spain. However, an area of rain is moving into Portugal, Madeira, just about avoiding Canaries for Sunday. Further east into central, eastern and southern Spain, as well as Gibraltar, sunny spells. Showers for Italy and for Greece, not as lively as the thunderstorms we saw last week. Then it turns a bit colder for Italy and Greece later next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. High pressure continues to be in charge and will do for the rest of the weekend into next week as well. There is a bit of a cool breeze coming in off the North Sea, and we can see that high pressure sat to the north of the UK, so we've got easterly breeze, so coastal stretches in the east will be on the chilly side, but further west feeling quite warm in that sunshine, though the wind's still gusty, particularly across Wales, the West Country, gusts of 30-40 miles an hour in exposed locations. Some low cloud across northeast England into eastern Scotland will limit the sunshine here, but for most blue skies across the whole of the country, and temperatures reaching 20-21 Celsius towards the south and the west. Chillier further north and east, temperatures struggling under the cloud, 9 or 10 Celsius across parts of northeast England into Scotland. Into the evening time, we remain with some low cloud across the north and the east of Scotland, but otherwise a fine end to the day for many. Plenty of sunshine across the country, and the same for Northern Ireland. Still breezy around the coast, temperatures around 12 or 13 Celsius. Low cloud across northeast England. Otherwise, cloudless skies for much of the UK, and temperatures 17-18 Celsius into the evening, which is quite high for the time of year, but still quite breezy, making it feel a little cooler. Temperatures will fall away as we head overnight. Some low cloud moving back inland across parts of Scotland, northern England. Mist and fog patches possible. The winds start to ease a little, and that will allow some mist and fog patches to form and a patchy frost as well. Towns and cities holding up just above freezing, but in the countryside we could see temperatures dipping to around about -1, -2 Celsius. So a fresh start to Sunday morning, but plenty of sunshine, mist and fog clearing. The low cloud just starting to drift further north as well, affecting Orkney and Shetland. Some hazy sunshine across the northeast, otherwise blue skies for many. The winds a little lighter than Saturday as well. Temperatures, though, generally around the mid-teens, locally towards 18 to 20 in the southwest.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back. And now, as Christians across the world observe the period of Lent, we're bringing you daily reflections from ministers around the United Kingdom. Here's today's message.
The GB News Daily Reflection.
One of the most emotional places in our society is the arrivals area at the airport. Every day you can see families, friends, lovers reuniting, possibly after years apart. It can be amazing. There's something about homecoming, reuniting with our loved ones, that's beautiful to see. The Bible's story is one of homecoming. We live away from God's grace and love, and He constantly beckons us home, even sending Jesus into history to help us make our way back. You may not have grown up in any faith tradition at all, so you may think to yourself, what do I have to go back to? But it's not really about that. It's about discovering that the heart's true home is in the love and grace of God. Whether we are returning to something we grew up with or coming back for the very first time, we are coming home.
Well, after that extremely calming, relaxing, beautiful message, we're going to go somewhere crazier. It's Grand National Day. The famous race at Aintree Racecross is set to get underway this afternoon. And we're joined now by the North West of England reporter, Sophie Reaper, who is at Aintree and is joined by some special guests.
I am indeed, Charlie and Miriam. It's the 177th annual Grand National here at Aintree. So to talk a bit more about it, I'm joined now by Barry Geraghty and Lee Phelps. Gents, thanks so much for joining us. Barry, I want to come to yourself first. In 2003, you were riding the winning horse Monty's Pass during the Grand National. First of all, tell me about how that felt, and then I want to know how the riders today are going to be feeling. It's about 4 hours to go now, how they're going to be feeling.
Yeah, it was an amazing feeling for me to win it. You know, you're achieving your dreams, your childhood dreams. But yeah, and like that, the winner will generally get a smooth passage. Things will go right. You know, you'll get a clear run around and you'll jump well. So, but the riders in there will be a high level of nerves, especially with younger riders. And there's a famous saying how the noisy lads get quiet and the quiet lads get noisy. That happens at Grand National Day, and probably no other day in the year in racing, because it's just a reflection on the level of tension in there. Where, as I say, the older heads who've been there, done it, tasted it, they know what to expect. With the younger riders having their first go, they'll be very nervous. It's a massive day. It's career defining.
It is indeed. Now, Lee, we're going to come to yourself in a second, because you are, in my mind, the betting expert. So for any of our viewers at home, you can give them some advice. Barry, I want to get your take first. You are a winner. Who's the winner today going to be for the 2025 Grand National?
I like Iroko. He was second at the festival last season to I Know the Way You're Thinking, who won the Gold Cup in Cheltenham last month. So he has very strong form. He's the one I'd like to be on. OK, so that's the jockey's pick. Lee, you're presenting William Hill. You're the expert. Who do you think's going to win? Who should our viewers at home be betting on today?
Well, Iroko is attracting money as we go along. We've price boosted that out, if you like, to 8 to 1. Iron Maximus has been the one that's had most money during the week. We boosted that one out at 7 to 1 as well. But today, interestingly, the money started to just drift away from Iron Maximus. won last year, will be really popular because not only a winner, but there seems to be loads of people called Max all of a sudden, so they like I Am Maximus. The film, of course, as well. Iroko, it seems to be very, very popular amongst the shrewdies, like Barry here. But look, there's lots of each-way punters out there. People want to have an each-way bet. And, you know, we're paying 6 places at William Hill on the each-way bet. So if you're looking at a bigger price, I know Barry likes Highland, fair enough. You know, I like that as well. Can Do Kid is one for me. I think the ground, the weather here was glorious, isn't it? As the ground starts to get better and better, I think Can Do Kid is a decent one, but there's lots of others. Brave Man's Game is another one at a big price, but if you're looking for a shorter price, Iroko, and a bigger price, go with Highland.
Gents, thank you so much for joining us. There you are. If you want to make your bets, that's the experts. That's their opinion anyway.
Thank you, Sophie. Looking forward to that very important race at 4 o'clock. Thank you guys at home for joining us on this New Look Saturday Morning Live.
Yes, we'll be back next Saturday, but don't go anywhere as Tom Harwood is up next with The Weekend. Tom, what's coming up on the show?
Listen, it's a busy weekend ahead. We are going to be talking about the Prince Andrew Chinese spy saga, a new twist in that tale. Also, forget net zero, try Jet Hero. Yes, the net zero department has been jetting all over the world. What's that about? Live protests too against Donald Trump and Marine Le Pen. We'll have it all on the weekend. That's to come after your weather.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers. Sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. High pressure continues to be in charge and will do for the rest of the weekend into next week as well. There is a bit of a cool breeze coming in off the North Sea, and we can see that high pressure